Welcome to another episode of the Bonsai Escape. If you subscribe to the channel, I appreciate it. Thank you. I do hope to bring out a lot more informative videos teaching you the art of bonsai. Today I am going to go over this old Shimpaku juniper that I've had for a couple years. We're going to go through some of its strengths, its weaknesses as a bonsai, and what we can do to compensate for those. So stay tuned. All right, so the Shimpaku juniper, probably one of the most famous type of bonsai trees, the juniper, the Shimpaku, the Japanese versions of the junipers. And because of that, when I purchased this tree a couple years ago, it was actually my first Shimpaku. I did show a video of a small Tunaki Shimpaku that I started a couple years ago, but it was just a little baby. I really wanted to get like an older tree. When I found someone that was selling these, I got really excited, and I probably didn't take I didn't look at a few things I should have looked at with the purchase of this juniper, and I'll share with you what that was, and so you can hopefully avoid these mistakes and not have to ponder over it like I am right now. So this Shimpaku, it's obviously it's very healthy. It's been growing well. 2 years I potted it into this Anderson flat. When I got it, it was in a big 5-gallon bucket. And in the spring of 2022, yeah, 23, 20, so spring of 23, actually, I can't even remember, but it's been 2 years, 2 growing seasons. I repotted it into this Anderson flat, and I did a pretty significant root reduction because it was very tangled in a mess. And I said, you know, I've got the opportunity. It's the right time of the year. Let's just really take care of this. And I didn't touch the rest of the tree. Actually, it's a lie. At the end of the year last year, I actually cut off a couple branches down here and ginned them, and I'll share with you why I did that. But when I first purchased this tree, I want to discuss at least some of the strengths this tree had that I was kind of excited about. First of all, it was a Shimpaku. Had a very tight foliage pads and pack. It was healthy. It looked healthy. I didn't have a lot of interior dying growth, anterior foliage dieback. And then over the past year, growing it in this Anderson flat, it's gotten even healthier. I'm getting a lot of extension in the tips now, which is characteristic of how Shimpakus grow. They get thick inner pads, and then they start to extend their branches. So I've been waiting for that. But more so, I just wanted this tree to recover, get a good year or two underneath it, establish some roots, because I knew I was going to have to get in here and do some significant work, and this is why. The downfalls, if you can see, first of all, this deadwood feature that I created here, and I'm going to do a close-up and show you. Okay, so this is a better close-up, I think, and this will give you a good idea of the trunk, the deadwood feature that I've created on this. Let me lift this up. It's going to zoom in different areas, but hopefully you'll get a better idea of kind of what we're working with here. It's got a great Nabari flare, and I actually created a lot of that when I repotted it. So getting back to kind of where this started, it had a couple of branches coming off the sides at 90-degree angles. They weren't really that interesting. It just didn't make sense. I don't know if I have pictures of it originally, but when I first purchased this tree, I saw a lot of lower branches that were going different ways, and I thought, okay, that'd be great. It's going to make a really cool deadwood features like I created here, this gin. I'm not blown away. I'm not married to that gin, and I'll show you why. My initial thought was, on the back side here, I actually had 2 branches. You can see kind of where they came from, here and here. I had 2 branches coming out, and that was not bad, but the problem was they came up and then they dropped straight down to the ground, and then they made a big U and came back up. So there was absolutely no way of bending them, no way of changing their direction. I had to cut them off. But the problem with those 2 branches, and this is where the biggest flaw of this tree comes in, you can probably see it from here, is this necked tourniquet section. There's a huge, decent flare. There's not much flare. It comes up pretty straight, and then there's a fast taper into like a chokehold around this neck. And that's a big flaw in this tree. Some of that was due to these big branches down here helping swell that thicker trunk at the bottom. But up here, it didn't happen. Now, when we spin this tree around, you'll see that that characteristic of that trunk changes. In this position, we've lost kind of that neck, that strangled neck. It has a nice flare with Nabari, and this is starting to point toward a much better front because of that reason, hiding some of that flaw of that interesting or weird looking trunk to first branch. I'm going to actually get in here and carve out these wounds. That needs to be trimmed out, and probably a little piece of shari or deadwood in that area. That might actually be a better front. Plus, I'm going to share with you a little bit more, but establishing where that front was, initially I was thinking about here because it has the best Nabari, the flare. It does hide that choked neck position, kind of gives you some deadwood feature, and that sounds great. But then when you look up, and if I can show this, the branch is coming straight up. There's actually no movement. There's nothing interesting about it. It just kind of loses a lot of the character from the bottom to the top, although there are some choices up here. There's some branching I can use. That's also something I'm considering. When I turn it this way and we still kind of hide that, let me get it in a better position, we can kind of hide that neck. Now we actually have this branch coming up, and we can get a little more look at the side structure of that branch, and you can get some movement in it possibly. And the secondary, or the first primary branch, is kind of going back and has some movement back here to give it some depth. This is going to be obviously the focal point of the tree, and the pads are developing. I have to lean this forward a little bit, but this is starting to point toward more of a front position. This actually isn't bad if I can figure out something to do with these branches. I'm not married to that at all. And as far as the flare, this isn't bad either. It's just that everything is going away from me in this position. The top is going away. This is coming toward me, which isn't a bad idea. This is probably the worst of everything with that trunk. It's just full on, looks like it's getting choked in the middle, so I hate the look of this. This was one of the issues I had from the beginning, and I should have probably thought about this a little bit more. This is actually a pretty nice, let me lower this down. This is actually a pretty cool front section, or lower section. The deadwood coming off to the side has some nice character. It hides that neck portion. The only problem is the first branch, the primary branch, is right pointing at us. It doesn't really give us an option here unless I cut it off and gin it. I don't think I want to do that. So I've got to make some decisions. 2 years that I have been playing with this tree, not even doing anything, looking at it and spending a lot of time sitting here spinning it. I've been using some 2x4s to prop it up and see if I can get anything to look more interesting, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. I don't know if you can see from this direction better, but this was actually kind of a desired front, even though the gins are pointing at me, but it makes this line straight, and I don't really like that. It's a very, very thick trunk. It's going to be really hard to bend unless I split that, and I don't know if I want to take the health of this tree away for that significance. I may have to. We'll have to figure it out. But this tree, I've spent 2 years dissecting and trying to cover up this major flaw in the bottom. I think the first thing I'm going to do is clean up all the deadwood feature on the bottom, where I have the gins and some of this back section. I was actually going to gin these, but it was horrible. They came, 2 of them came straight out, pointing straight down. It just didn't look right in any sense. So that's what I'm going to do first. I want to clean this up, see if I can get rid of some of this reverse taper just from the base of where the branches were, and then start really just making some decisions on where the front of this tree is going to be. and then what I can do with the rest of the canopy. Probably the most critical is what the base of the tree and the trunk is giving you to start with, because a lot of this can be manipulated as long as it's healthy. I've got a lot of branches and tree up on top to give me some options, but this is really pretty much dictating the direction everything is pointing toward, no pun intended, as to what's the front, and that's what I'm going to figure out right now. So hang on, stay tuned. All right, this has been quite a transformation from when we started, but I wanted to share with you a few things that I had to do in some of the carving. Not that I'm the world's best carver, but I did need to clean up some of this dead wood. When you got in here and looked, I don't know if you noticed, but there were multiple branches that surrounded this lower trunk. There were two here, there were two here, there were two coming out of here, one on the bottom. I actually shortened up that gin to give it a little less girth and to make it less conspicuous, but I really had to do some carving around this and then really decide where that front was. This is the view, I think, best view of the front that gives us the flare of the base, a lot of Nabari, you get a little bit of the deadwood features from the back, and then the depth with this back branch, and I've got some major wire on here to try to start influencing that forward lean. This is going to probably take some time to continue this process. I did wire the branches, remove some stuff to give it a little bit more emphasis into the structure, but this is not the final design. This, my goal here is to repot this up into almost a position like that. This way it gives that lean. It looks like it's holding on with these large Nabari in the back. Maybe not that extensive, but definitely a lean to it when we repot it. Probably in 2 years. This has got a lot of room to grow in this Anderson flat, but I think it's off to a good start. End of the summer, beginning of fall, good time to do some structural wiring like this. The tree still has a little time to grow, to heal itself. The initial flush of growth from the spring and harden off, which means the flow of sap is a little bit less, and the xylem and cambrium have kind of fused. So even though I didn't really use raffia, I could have probably used raffia and really cranked on this thing. But I wanted to get an idea. It's not my favorite tree for that reason of the flaws in the trunk, but just a way to kind of overlook those and draw some emphasis with some shari and deadwood, and then the feature of the tree. I'm not sure how much this back branch is doing for me. We'll let it progress over the next couple of years and see, but at least we're off to a decent start. It'll fill in now, and we'll see where we're at in another year or two. But again, when you're picking out trees, there's a lot of things to pay attention to. Really, the significant part is the trunk and the base. If we've got some nice Nabari, start thinking about where that front of that tree is going to be. Probably one of the things I overlooked when I was doing this tree, and I really kind of overestimated what the deadwood was going to look like, all the branches that were coming off. And that was because there was so many that I thought, oh, I have a lot of options. But when I got into it, it really didn't present with a lot of options. So keep that in mind when you're looking for a tree to purchase, as well as the movement the tree is going to give you up through the main trunk, and what branches are available and how flexible it is. How much can you manipulate that to get that desired look? But I think this is off to a decent start. Again, first trimming after 2 years of leaving it in a pot after it was repotted. Now I'll let this recover for the next year or two and continue probably doing some minor wiring on the little branches, the tertiary branches. But I think the structure itself is where I want it for the most part, and we'll leave it in the shade for a couple weeks and let it recover. If you enjoyed this video, I really hope you subscribe, and look forward to some more tutorials and examples of how we can take nursery stock and turn it into gorgeous junipers like this. Have a great one. Take care.